Right on. How's it going, Dev? You okay, man?
Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. Glad to be on Iblis Manifestations.
It's my pleasure to have you on, man. It was obviously I've been looking forward to having you on, but it was just a good excuse to just catch up and shoot the shit anyway. It's been a minute or two. I saw you briefly in London just a couple of months ago, so it was good to have a catch up. Finally, having you back in the UK again.
Yeah, for real. And yeah, it's such a shame that I had to miss Trivax because by the time I got from work to the venue, yeah, the second band was on, so I was like, but yeah, next London show, I'm definitely going to be there for sure.
Right, yeah, I forgot that you missed Trivac. So this podcast episode is now finished, and I wish you all the best. Yeah, it's all good, man. It was actually a really great show. We had a fucking blast. Like the whole weekend was just fucking wild. I don't know if I ever told you as well. I ended up injuring my left foot from jumping off the stage like a fucking maniac and running
No
into the
way.
crowd. Yeah, yeah, but comes in the territory. I think is kind of expected at a show like that. So tell us, man. I mean, what have you been up to? It's awesome, first of all, to see the growth of your channel, everything that you've been doing, the amount of work that you've put into it. Like black metal is like it's a genre that one of the best aspects of it is the fact that it's very hard to contain, and I love that about it. But also at the same time, I feel like just like anything in life, if you give it the hours, the reps, and the work, it's something that can also give a lot back to you, and this certainly applies to black metal as well, and I feel like that's the approach that you have taken, like whether it's everything you've done with the channel and especially dissecting the more musical aspect of things. I think there's a lot to be said there. So just tell us, I mean, what's this process been like for you, and you're at what now, like 17,000 subscribers on YouTube?
Yeah, coming up to 18,000 now. But I mean, oh, what have I been doing with the channel? Like just for the past year and a half, I decided to commit a bit more and upload regularly. But it all really just started off with like an old iPhone that I had, and I remember I think it was like the time when I was just finishing uni, and I was like, screw it, let's just make a YouTube cover of a 1349 song. So I did what I could to transcribe Chasing Dragons, and then that kind of was the first official video on the Dev Gohil channel.
That's a great song, by the way.
Fantastic song. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from there I was like, all right, because I saw a whole bunch of stuff on YouTube back then, like we're talking 2016, 2017, with people like Jared Dines and stuff making more comedic videos. And I was thinking like maybe let's try and put out some black metal content because there wasn't much that I really enjoyed. So I was like, okay. So I put myself in the shoes of myself when I was 16 or 15, when it was like, okay, if I want to learn black metal, what am I going to do? How do I do it? So there was nothing back then on YouTube on good black metal instructions on what chords to play and all this kind of stuff. And even during college, I was asking some people, all my lecturers, and they will say, I was like, okay, yeah, cool. What are black metal chords, or what are some evil chords? And they were all
Mhm.
chords that I already knew. And I was like, but I already know this stuff, but there has to be more. So it was a case of just being really into the music and just trying to dig deep and try and find different stuff. So I, you know, spent some time learning black metal and then learning some bits of music theory, then making like my own chords and understanding how this chord and that chord can work together. And then making, turning some musical theory knowledge as well as passion, hatred, and, you know, tremolo picking and get, yeah, all the stuff, all the technical stuff into kind of like black metal. But then it was also remembering the theory that I learned in college and university and just merging that together. So now I'm able to be like, okay, yeah, so if I play this chord, these are the notes, and this is roughly what the chord's name is, for example. So that's how I kind of started. And then from there, of course, it's like refining and honing your craft with all the band stuff, all the live shows, rehearsals. Then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I know a lot of stuff about black metal. I'm like, okay, let me show the world what I
Mm.
what I can offer. And then it was like, okay, so if I was 16 years old again and I want to learn black metal, what do I want to learn, or what did I want to learn? And that's how it started off, really. And then before I got into like the super educational content, I was like, okay, I need some stuff so I can build an audience before I get into the educational stuff. So, admittedly,
Mm.
the early videos are a bit more clickbaity, 5 types of black metal riffs and how to play them, 5 more types of black metal riffs, and this is what black metal sounds like on a 7 string. But I knew I had to do that because I wanted to build like a strong foundation, or at least some people who are actually interested in black metal guitar playing.
I
And
like
then
the one that you did with the car.
there, yeah, yeah, we will get onto that. We will talk about, yes, yes, yes. That's another thing. No, that was great fun. But that was the thing. It was basically thinking about myself when I was 16. What did I want to learn? Create content based on what I wanted to learn back then. What would be beneficial for me? Build a strong foundation and test the waters, and then start making more educational content and then more experimental stuff, such as the car videos. Now, I am planning on doing another car video, and that's hopefully going to be out on the channel within the next month.
So just
I
to
don't know.
clarify for
Yeah.
everyone listening as well who doesn't have a fucking clue what we're talking about, this was basically you used a car stereo as an amp to then you proceeded to play black metal with it, and it sounded interesting. I feel like it's one of them. It would have probably been cooler to experience that in person rather than, let's say, what the camera will have captured, right?
Yes, yeah, it was hilarious because it was just near where I live, and I remember the first video. I was like to my cousin, "Hey, can I borrow your car?" And he was like, "Why?" It's like, "I want to make a YouTube video where I plug a guitar into it." And he's like, "All right, then bet." And then it just kind of worked out. So
Hmm.
yeah, and then I did it with a few other friends' cars and stuff, and yeah, there's another video that I want to make from it because I kind of figured out a few things, and well, spoilers. And if I can find it, I found a way to hook one of these bad boys up to a car. So
Amazing. Hey,
yeah,
listen, what was hang on a minute. Show that again. Not all of them are turned all the way up. What's up with the Oh, now it is.
yeah,
Yeah,
now
yeah, you fixed it. There we
yeah,
go.
yeah, there we go. So
Yeah, so that's
yeah,
a HM2 heavy metal,
hell yeah,
the very
and
well-known Swedish well, it's like Swedish signature sound of early 90s. Yeah.
yeah, this the chainsaw, Swedish chainsaw,
Mhm.
whatever it's called. Yeah, so I've tested it with my car because my car. Well, the reason why I didn't use my car before is because I couldn't connect everything up properly, and with the car I have now, I'm able to. So that's going to be something coming out soon. I just need to film the video and then and do it. But I've tested it, and it sounds
Yeah.
just as chaotic and crunchy as the HM2 sounds, and it's surreal listening to HM2 out of a car when you're actually playing. So yeah, that's a little bit on the channel, and now it's more the case of what other content can I provide for people? What more value can I give to the next generation of black metal musicians? And that's really what the channel is
Mm.
about and who it's for. It's for the people who are, I don't know, 14, 15, 16, they've just gotten into Emperor or 1349 or Pantheon Eye or Elend or Dark Throne, whoever, Gorgoroth, all those guys. And it's like, okay, how can I make a black metal chord? Or is there a kind of like thing that I can use to make something sound more black metal, but explained in a, you know, fairly simple way without
Mm.
getting too geeky? Because it's very easy for music theory to get complicated, and I don't want that to happen for people. I want things to be as approachable and accessible, and that's really what the channel's about. It's all about the next generation up, because
Mm.
we need to inspire people to create new sounds and new ideas, learn from the past, but build new things, and that's really what it's for and why it exists.
I think
So
one thing about it that's really quite tricky with black metal in general is that I think it's a difficult thing to pinpoint the sound of the genre, because if you want to pinpoint the sound of, let's say, one singular band, Um, Pretty much most of those bands released albums that all sounded completely different to one another. Speaking of at least the pioneering bands, anyway. Yeah, like I guess maybe Bathory had the most sort of formalized kind of an approach, particularly with maybe the second and third album. But I feel like there's this thing of like you think of Dark Throne and Sarcophago, and they sound completely different to one another, but they are, at least in my books, just as black metal as one another. And I think there's this very weird thing where it's actually really difficult to pinpoint the sound because I think it's a genre that perhaps is, for the most part, defined by its intent and the context of it, and the themes and all these things. I think that's kind of what it's the whole package. I think it's a genre, perhaps one of the only genres within existence that isn't limited to just the notes or certain drum patterns. And I think that's kind of what's fascinating about it. But again, what I why I think that it could be challenging to try and pinpoint that to one thing. Like, yes, maybe you can say that, yeah, if you're playing a minor chord, going from like seventh fret to third fret and then going back and forth, then yeah, all right, cool, that's kind of like a black metal thing. But still, it's more than that. And I sometimes feel like even if you're playing the right notes, like, let's say, concerning the younger generation, it's not something you can imitate. Like, you really have to mean what it is that you're doing, I feel. But obviously, providing you have the right tools, which is, I guess, what you're providing now.
Yeah, and that's a really important point because it's like if I was to explain black metal to someone, but without it's difficult because you can think of black metal superficially, whereas where it's like, black and white album covers, corpse paint, harsh vocals and guitars, but like you said, it's so scattered and fragmented. There's so many things that can be black metal, and you're right in saying that it's all about like the package. It's the intent as well, and it's a difficult thing because I was speaking to a few people in my Discord server and stuff, and someone asked like, "What is black metal?" And I'm like, "That's a great question." Because like sometimes these days it's like, okay, what is black metal? Like, what is that defining thing that makes black metal black metal? But I don't think it's one defining thing. But I do think a lot of it is kind of the intent and the kind of it's that kind of combination between like passion and emotion. It's a lot more kind of expressive in a way. Even though all music and art is expressive, it's just like a different take on it, a more kind of personal expression. I think that's one way to kind of dive deeper into what is kind of black metal. But it's very very interesting because it's one of those things that you can't pinpoint exactly what it is. Not easily anyway. I mean that's the thing. I don't know anymore. I
I mean,
don't really
I
want
mean,
to be like a I don't really want to
yeah,
be like a figurehead for saying what is and what isn't black metal because I don't think that's fair of me to say that.
it's like maybe it's as far as the complexity of the question, it's like the opposite of asking what is a woman, or maybe that's not the. Obviously, I'm referring to a certain film, but I think the thing of it is that you know, it's like I said, it's something that I don't think you can pinpoint one singular thing within the genre, but it's rather the connection that's in between multiple different bands, multiple different generations of artists that have come around, who've performed a certain way, have got a certain history to them, like everyone. This is one thing about it that I always kind of found really strange, especially in the UK scene, is that um a lot of, especially like up and coming bands, like, I mean, first and foremost, I believe everyone has the right to want to express themselves, and I think that the more you express yourself, even if you're using the tools that belong to others that came before you, it is useful because if you're smart enough and you pay enough attention, you'll begin to recognize who you really are from that expression. It's kind of like when you say something out loud for the first time, then you hear it differently than all the times before when the thought was simply just in your head. And I think that black metal is kind of a little bit like that. But what I find strange is in regards to this, let's say the UK scene or a lot of up and coming bands, is they kind of they see it they see the surface level rather than really understand the depth of it, and the personalities involved, and they try and imitate that too much rather than have something of their own to put out there. It's almost like the idea of trying to be black metal is kind of alien to me. I like black metal to happen in the same way that Judas Priest were heavy metal, where they were kind of heavy metal, but by accident. But that was just their natural sound, but they just did it. You know what I mean? It's not to
Mm.
say that you shouldn't allow yourself to get inspired, but I think it's like something that should come to you naturally. And if it doesn't, I don't think there's the need to force it. I kind of feel that way about it as well, because then otherwise, I think it's important to be careful that it doesn't become a product either, because I don't think it's a genre that belongs to the category of being a product.
Mm. Yeah, and that's a very, very important point. It's like people need to find their own sounds, and it takes a long time to find out like what is a band's own sound, sometimes years. But it's part of that process that makes the art that you make more authentic. And it's very easy for someone new to black metal to fall into this trap and be like, "Hey, this is kind of cool. I want to sound like this." And
Yeah.
it's like you said, it's completely fine. But when it comes to something that's, I don't know, more personal, and in some ways, to some people, like I like listening to bands that are different from
Yeah.
each other, and I like listening to bands that I can learn from or be inspired by. And a really, really well, a band that's always done that is 1349, and everything that I do, yeah, always at some point stems from 1349, when it comes to like the guitar chords and the playing and stuff. And the reason why it all goes back to 1349 is because I just learned a whole bunch of 1349 songs. I found out what chords they were using and how they play the chords, the kind of the song structures and stuff. But and it's also the same thing. Like from what I want from black metal, I want it to feel like a fucking hellstorm all the time. I want this constant barrage assault, most like you're riding on a like a fucking missile and it's about to explode kind of thing. I want that level of intensity. I want to like really feel like it's swarming. I want to feel like the air's moving in the room. And
Which,
1349.
by the way, that sorry to interrupt your flow there, but that applies to a lot of your own stuff as well, especially that you did with Ereskigal. That there's this very sort of percussive nature to it as well. So I mean, I guess it's one of them things. It can be somewhat mutable in that sense as well. You can either make it atmospheric or you can just make it totally feral. Like a fucking rabid dog chasing after your granny. So it's like it could be like any of those things, really.
And that's it, and that's the thing. It's like generally what I want from black metal is like I do like the Hellstorm, but ultimately I just want to feel that there's like real passion in the music. Like
Hmm.
I saw Elend at the Underworld a few weeks ago, and that was a fantastic show. That's one of the coolest bands I've seen in a long time, and it's just when the stars align and when you can tell everyone is really giving a shit, and you can tell there's real passion behind the music as well, and yeah, just going back to yeah, before I dive into the Areshgal stuff, like 1349 has just always been one of those bands that has kind of like, for me anyway, changed the game when it comes to especially guitar playing, because the way Archeon and Shalva wrote the music back then, like even some of the stuff on Liberation, I Breathe Spears and Satanic Propaganda and Legion, like they are really, really tricky songs to play. Like they really honestly require like total 110% commitment. And it's that level of like discipline that I think will really help. a lot of people when they're learning guitar and trying to play black metal, because you need to be really, really committed to what you're playing, because that way the intent comes through more clearly. And
Mm,
that's one of the really cool things about the Trivax album. And there's always, like, even in like the first couple songs, it's like everything is kind of meant to be where it is, and there's kind of thought put into it, and there's this, the intent is there. It's like what the band is about just by listening to like the first few songs. It's like, okay, yeah, this is what they're talking about, and that's the kind of thing that we need with black metal now. We need that kind of like, it's a combination of transparency as well as creativity and personality, I think.
mm. I think that's a very important combination, and thank you also. I appreciate the bringing that up. Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of those things. Like it's okay to learn to, like we're all sharing riffs, and I think it's a powerful thing to, like if someone else expressing themselves, uh, inspires you to want to express yourself. I think that's really, really a powerful thing. And like I said, it's something that evolves as the years go on, or you get to become more authentic. The more you do it, the more you tend to find your own sound. Not everyone does, but hopefully some do. So I think that there's definitely power to that. But also, this is totally like off topic, but I really am curious just about your background in particular, because both you and your brother, the way you've both been involved in the underground. I mean, first of all, I didn't know that you two were related, and secondly, I'm super intrigued to know the kind of family that you came from, because as we know, Indian families are super strict, super academic, and super just kind of like, high expectations. And for you to end up being so involved with extreme metal and black metal of all things, where obviously your brother's like one of the most active promoters down in London, and then you have now got this whole thing where you're, basically teaching loads of people how to perform this type of music, and showing them how it's done. I'm super, super, super curious about that. So take us through your background a little bit, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I mean, Jessel and I, we both have really cool families and really cool parents. I mean, that's kind of what it is.
Mm.
Um, well, that's the thing. Like my background, there was like an emphasis on academia, but it wasn't like super strict. My parents are, they grew up here. Jessel's parents grew up here, so they kind of were a bit more, let's say, I don't know, I guess more liberated, more um, just cool, I guess. Like my dad was like always into music, and even as a kid he was like playing Red Hot Chili Peppers and gangster rap and stuff. I
Mm.
was listening to songs like Dr. Dre's 2001 when I was like 5 and 6 years old, and then 50 Cent when I was 8 and stuff. So my family's always been like big into music, and I
Those
can't
are all
really,
great music, by the way. Just
yeah.
saying, like
Yeah,
2001 is a
like
fucking
I
awesome
can't
album.
speak, yeah, I can't speak for Jessel's family too much, but they've always been, and same with my parents, they've just been really supportive of the music. I mean, one of the reasons why I got into black metal was because of Jessel. He showed me Nile one day, and I was like, "Fucking hell, this is epic!" And then a month later, he showed me Immortal, and I was like, "Fucking hell!" And then it all kind of stemmed from there. And
Nice.
that's when I was just I was 14 back then. I was just getting into, yeah, just starting my GCSEs. And in that time, I was getting more and more into Iron Maiden and stuff. And then I was massive into Dimmu Borgir. And then 1349 was always kind of there. And then, well, the first black metal album I ever got was Demon War, and I remember, so I was with my mum one time in HMV in the local shopping center, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And I literally just asked my mum, "Look, there's this cool band, and can you get me the CD?" And it was 1349's Demon War, which is
Mm.
still to this day my favorite black metal album. So yeah, that's really the background that we came, what I came from really. My parents were really cool. They wanted me to do well, and whatever I chose, obviously parents just want the best for you.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, they're like, whatever you do, just make sure you can get something out of it, and it helps you at some point in the future, I guess. So they're all great in that sense.
Yeah, that's good.
And they've always been like extremely supportive of all the music, and there's a very very healthy relationship. And if I need everyone to be quiet if I'm like filming, they respect that. And if they want me to not be quiet and not run all these crazy stacks, then it's like, all good. And so
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very very healthy relationship and healthy dynamic, and they're supportive. My whole families have my family's seen me covered in blood and pain at Ereskigal shows. So you know my mum's seen Ereskigal, so that kind of says it all.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that's cool, man. Listen, that warms my heart. I respect that a lot, because my own family are very much like that. I had to earn there's the sort of unspoken hazing period of like, are
yeah,
you really doing this? And then they kind of realize how fucking serious you are about doing it. And it's
yeah.
like, oh no, okay, this is literally our son's life, and then then the support comes, and I think that's a valuable thing. It's so much better, I think, when you have to earn it, as hard as it might be prior to that. I think, also, just to confirm as well, are you brothers or are you cousins? I kind of got a bit confused by that.
Cousins, yeah. Our
Cousins,
dad's
right on.
brother. Yeah,
Right, right, right.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, I
That's
got
all
you.
good.
Right.
It's all good.
Yeah,
But yeah,
when you said his parents and then your parents, I thought, wait, hang on a minute, what the fuck's going on here? But that's still very cool, man. I mean, again, still, even actually, that's, I think, even more impressive that you've done this as a wider family rather than, simply just siblings. I think that's even cooler, really. And it's good to know, honestly, that there are people out there like your parents, because that's, I think, everything that has such an impact over all of our lives that sometimes, we don't acknowledge it enough. I don't think parents are appreciated enough in today's world. I also think that there are a lot of people who are in a position of parenthood who don't fully understand the importance of their position, and I think that's a tragic thing. Sometimes the kid turns out to be a massive success, despite some baggage, but many a times that tends to have a very negative impact on them as well. I've had very close friends of mine that, I sort of fell out with, and then as years went by, I realized, oh no, it was the parents, and they sometimes had no fault of their own. So it's really like having good parents, despite the amount of wealth that you might have behind you, is like, I think, one the biggest lottery you could probably win before being born.
yeah, pretty much. We can't appreciate them enough. And well, yeah, back in the day when I just started kicking, I was what, 17 or something, and premature birth. Premature birth, man. That was a long time ago. When we were doing shows, like our first show was in Kent, and my dad drove us to the show, and my dad was driving us to a whole bunch of shows because we took our own equipment and everything. And yeah, can't thank them enough for their support over the years. And it's one of the reasons why I came back to the UK, is because, like, later on in life at some point, if I'm not there to support them, then it's not good. It's not looking
No,
good.
it's not. No, it's not. And that's why it sucks for me that I can't go back, but, it's kind of like, they seem way more at peace with it than I am, but, yeah, that's a very tough thing to, is because you want to be able to give back to them, but then sometimes as well, you just simply give back by being happy and living a good life, that you've got your own purpose and you're striving towards something. And
Mhm.
listen, sometimes you might not have that figured out, but as long as I think you're trying, that's kind of really the main thing, because life's not exactly that simple and black and white sometimes. But I'll tell you something really funny. Uh, 'cause just to lighten the mood. But fucking, I had Silenos on the last episode. So just before this one comes out, I had him on, and I was telling him how I actually converted my mother into a metalhead by making her listening to Dimmu Borgir and listening to the intro for All Tid, because it was the piano. I know, yeah, yeah, yeah. My mom, listen, my mother, she's seen Nile, Behemoth, Watain. She's seen all of those bands. She's met all those bands. She's a big fan, and I converted her to our side.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
actually so cool. And I think that's great that you got Selenos on as well, because
hmm
he's someone that I want to feature on Black Metal Legends as well. He's been a massive, massive influence over the years. No, that's
I'll
great, man.
yeah, I'll pass you details on to him. I'm
All
sure
right,
he would like
sweet.
to talk. It was a great chat on here. Obviously, the episode is not out yet as we speak, but that was like probably for me one of the highlights of the podcast. Definitely, I would say.
Oh,
Yeah,
hell yeah. Oh yeah, that's going to be epic, and I'm really excited to hear what he's going to say and all the topics you discussed. Because yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting
Well,
because
hopefully neither him or myself will get cancelled, but that's the only teaser I will give on that.
cool, that's all good. Yeah, because it's been a while since there's been like a solo Selenos interview. And yeah, like you know what it's like back in the day when you're like 17, 18, you've just found out a band. And I remember it was when Abrahadabra came out, so I was like scouring the internet for like, when's the album coming out? Are there any interviews and all that kind of stuff? So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's going to be really, really great. And it's going to be interesting to see what Dimmu Borgir do in the future as well, if he does
yeah.
go into those topics. Um,
He
but yeah,
did actually. Yeah, they're doing a new. They're working on a new record, but obviously they like to take their time on things. I think they've set the bar so high in some aspects. Obviously, they're a very popular band, but equally, I don't think their music is for everyone. Whether it's within black metal or not, I think they're kind of a bit more broader than just black metal, to be honest. Anyway, I think everyone knows that, but I think that within what they do, they've set the bar so fucking high every single time. It's hard to want to come out and put out other releases and whatnot. But I was gonna say something else. I completely forgot. But yeah, yeah. No, it was a great chat, and yeah, yeah. I think it's one of them. This is what I was going to say. There we go. Abrahadabra, you mentioned that came out in 2010, right? So, how old are you now, by the way?
28,
28.
yeah,
Okay. So you're born in what, 94?
95,
95. Okay. When in 95?
March 4th.
March 4th. Holy shit. You're born exactly one day after our drummer Matt. That's wild.
Oh,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah.
One
Same
day
year and
after.
everything.
One day after.
Yeah. So he's 3rd of March 95. You're 4th. That's fucking wild.
Oh, that's
But
interesting. Yeah, because Dan Saunders, his birthday's the 3rd of March as well.
all right. And
Yeah.
so is the birthday of Tobias Forge, actually, funnily enough. Don't ask me how the fuck I know that. But
But also,
but
here's another fun fact. Nocturno Colto and I share the same birthday.
that's fucking wild, man.
Yeah.
All these Pisces people, and in fact, I'm pretty sure Selenos is a Pisces as well. But that's just gonna freak everyone out. That why do I know so many random people's birthdays? But like the the thing is that what was I gonna say? Going back to Abrahadabra,
Yeah.
I remember when that came out, and I was still in Iran at that point. And I didn't discuss this on the podcast, but I just thought it's funny to bring it up since you mentioned it. But I had to, so in between school days, I think I spent one entire night not sleeping because I stayed up trying to download the full album on 2/3 kilobytes per second dial-up internet, right?
Yeah.
Try to imagine, and then this is when you're downloading through browsers, so sometimes it'll get canceled, so you have to download the whole song from beginning. Somehow, through absolute sheer perseverance and obviously not paying any attention in school and, just being totally a fucking outcast. Yeah, well, not school, but high school. Yeah, I ended up eventually downloading that album. So to me it's always kind of cool, like, whatever, like I don't care about cult credentials, but it's fucking cool to have gone through that and then, like, what, just like over over like a decade and a half later, actually sat like having a podcast conversation like that. I'll be honest, like I'm never a fanboy, but I do have moments where I think to myself like, this is really cool, like the whole thing, or even just what we do with Trivex. I'm always thinking like, no fucking way, I can't believe we're even doing this. It's the best feeling in the world. I'm sure you probably feel like that when you interviewed Nocturnal Culture, right? It's like the
Oh
fucking
yeah.
coolest thing.
Yeah. See, I'm one of those people that I I guess I'm very bad at hiding my fanboyism, and it was kind of like that when I was speaking to Blackthorn and Shalva and even Necromorbus, and it was kind of like, oh shit, I've been listening to these guys like since I was young, and then like 10, 12, 13, however
Mm,
long many years later, it's like I finally get to talk and meet, like, have a chat and like meet these guys, and it's
mm.
just an insane feeling. Like I was just thinking, like, because I was having the same thought the other day. I was thinking like, damn, like I've been really quite fortunate to be able to have done and speak to the people I've spoken to, and still blows my mind to this day that it's just like, shit, man. I just had like a 2 hour chat with Nocturnal Culto.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
that's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, listen, you also have to like all things considered, you do have to realize at the end of the day that they're just human. And then
Hmm.
usually you find that the artists that act the most far away from that as possible, and act is a very important word to consider here. Usually they tend to be the most insecure or the most unaccomplished, because artists who've really said their piece and then they receive the regards that that they perhaps some of them seek, some of them didn't even seek that, they just wanted to express themselves. But you'll find that kind of humility with a lot of those kind of people. And actually, one of my very good friends, who he plays in Destroyer 666. One thing that many years ago he said to me that I never forgot is that when you doesn't matter which band a certain person is from, doesn't matter how many albums they've sold, doesn't matter how many fucking shows they've played or how much they're a legend of the underground or all that, a true artist is always a fan to begin with, and you can always connect to a fan as another fan. And I think that's a very powerful thing, like you can never forget that. Like for example, you never see fucking Steve Harris walking around saying, hey, look at me, I'm in one of the greatest fucking heavy metal bands in the world. The guy's like a complete introvert, and I think that's a powerful thing to keep in mind when you do interact with your heroes per se.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly it. And that's one thing that's always really stood out, is that they are just human. You can talk to them normally. And, it's like you said, they have like this level of awareness and understanding at the same time. So, but yeah, they're all fans. We're all fans of fans. And that's a really, really great way of putting it. And I don't think there's any better way of putting that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you can respect them. Like I think some people also miss the mark by trying so hard not to fanboy that they just act like an arrogant prick. And I think that's totally missing the point as well. I think there's a really good balance to have between the two.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, yeah, it's always, I don't know, if, like, speaking from my perspective, it's just really exciting to speak to these people, and then that just makes me really happy, and then it's like I just feel so grateful to speak to these people, and it's a good feeling, and then you end the conversation and you feel like you've learned so much, and your mind's broadened, and you've just had a good time talking to them
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah. The way I look at it is it's not always just about speaking to the person either, but at the core of it is the drive by curiosity. So to me, my curiosity comes before anything else. So
Hmm.
sometimes I want to get to those questions. I want to get to those topics, regardless of even if there is like a little bit of objection to them. That's just how my mind works. I'm like, I want to know the fucking answers.
Yeah,
Life is short. I want to know everything.
yeah, yeah.
So that's the way I kind of look at it as well, which sort of by which point you almost stop thinking about who it is you're even talking to. You just want to know what they know. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing that really, really stood out with the first episode of Black Metal Legends with Shalva, because I wanted to know what it was like being in 1349 at the time and what was going through their heads and what was the songwriting process and how do they come up with this and why is this there and why is that there and who thought of this bit and who thought of that bit. Just endless curiosity, and it's great. I mean, and then it's like, I don't know, it's just like little things that you just end up learning, like little fun facts. And I love doing black metal legends. I think it's one of the most rewarding feelings, but not only rewarding for, myself, it's also really rewarding for all the listeners and watchers and subscribers, because there's so much that you can learn from these people. Because
Mm.
they've, at some point they've been at a point that you either want to be or you wish you were, and then you can just learn and get advice from these guys, and it's always great. It's always like super super cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's a good thing. We live in a different age. Like, it's a totally different age where you get to really access the artists that you like in a way that you never did before, whether it's with podcasts or whether it's with interviews. Sometimes you and I find ourselves in the middle of it, which is even extra fucking cool. But, like, to me, I only bring out episodes that I would want to hear, with guests that I want to hear speak more, and on subjects that I'd like to hear more about. Like, it's kind of like, as a musician, I think a lot of times you get to cover a lot of things on your own anyway, but then it's all about the meat and potato. It's about the why. That's what I'm
Yeah,
interested in. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And I think that's really what gives this whole thing life. But just to kind of divert slightly as well, since we did mention Ereskigal, for
yeah.
anyone who doesn't know, that's actually your own band that obviously you've had for quite a few years. I understand you've obviously been on somewhat of a hiatus, but actually Soli, the bass player from Trivex, is also the bass player from Ereskigal. Is the only other band that he's played with. Other than another band that I think stole some riffs. But tell us. I love you love your facial reaction to that, man. So tell us, what's the story of Ereshkigal at the moment? I mean, are you guys coming back now that you're back in the UK, or what's the plan, really?
Yeah, so the plan is with Areshole is to, well, I want to get us playing some more shows, but good shows, not just, silly gigs in Camden. I'd rather get us on, good stages and good events. Um, Ideally around Europe. So let's see, because I'm planning to write new Ereskigal, and it's
Cool.
just gonna be as well. I'm trying to make it more, I don't know, more Ereskigal in a way, more unsettling, just as frenetic and hell hell raising and destructive, but also
That's
in
quite
somewhat.
interesting for me to hear, because you also write a lot of stuff that's just kind of like straight up metal, and you've got potential to write something that's a lot more accessible. Yet it seems to me that your natural urge is to want to go for the really fucking hardcore stuff, and that's what you want to perform live. I'm intrigued by that decision.
Oh, it's because it's what I want to do. It's what
Sure.
I want to do. Like, Ereshkigal is arguably one of the most, if not the most aggressive, frantic, brutal bands to come out of the UK black metal scene for a long time, and I want to keep it that way. I want to kind of do it the 1349 way, which is like setting a new bar of just like what's capable in black metal. And like I said, everything stems from like that 1349 philosophy of trying to make something more. So there's a big difference between the sound of Sojourn and End, because Sojourn was actually written collaboratively, um, with some old Ereskigal members back in the day. Because there used to be a band called Eternum, which sort of dissipated, and I joined the band when it was dissipating, and then me and Elliot, the singer, decided to just start something new, and he came up with the name Areshole, and I was like, hell yeah, that sounds cool. and also like the like the Sumerian like queen of the underworld kind of thing. I was like, all right, yeah, that's kind of wavy. So I was like, cool, let's go for it. And then we started writing, some songs and riffs and working together and in the rehearsal room with a few other musicians. James, who's actually living in Korea now, and my good friend Lee back in the day. So it was just the four of us jamming around and coming up with songs together. And then that kind of like dissipated when the band dissipated again when James left to Korea. So it was kind of like me and Elliot, and we were just like, oh, we've got these four songs. But we let it sit for like 2 or 3 years because it was just like the two of us listening to like the Sojourn EP, because the Sojourn EP was recorded because I needed a uni project.
Hmm.
And a few years later it was like, I was just still like making little tweaks on the adjustment in the mix and stuff in the meantime, like trying to make it just a little bit better. And then Elliot goes to me, hey, should we release this stuff? And I was like, oh, all right then. And then we found the artwork, we got a logo made, and well, Elliot sorted out the logo. I think the artwork on Sojourn is one of the it's a nebula, but I can't remember which one. And then we spoke to Steve of Old Corpse Road, and he had Blackwood Productions. So there were like some cassettes made of Sojourn, which was really really cool. And then it was released like digitally and stuff. And then we decided to make it more of a live thing. And then that's when Matt, Sully, and then Isaac joined the band. And then we had a 4 or 5 piece, and then doing some shows for a while. And then Isaac and Elliot decided to leave, and I was in two minds. I was actually thinking of like not continuing with Ereskigal because I wanted to do it with Elliot. But then he was like, you might as well just do it because the music is good enough and you're capable of doing the vocals. So I was like, all right, then
So
I'll.
have you actually got a lineup for the band now?
Yes, yeah. So Dan is not in Ereskigal anymore. So so I asked Billy to
Dan from
Guitarist.
Formicarius.
Yes, yeah,
All
he was
right.
doing guitars on a couple shows we did back in 2011 and 2022, along with Sully and Matt. And then,
You played in 2022?
yeah, it was the 4th of
Oh.
March with Ninkarsag and Devastator, because I organized that show, and it was an
Ah, right.
amazing show. Yeah, great dudes. Everyone of it was very professional, but yeah, digressing slightly. Yeah, so I've asked Billy, who played in Dormitorium and Premature Birth with myself, and we've worked. We've made some magic together. So he's doing live guitars now, and well, just a case of getting the band together to rehearse and getting some shows booked. But right now, I'm kind of mostly focused on YouTube as opposed to Areshole. But I am writing the new stuff, and I do want to get some new music and new material out there. But continuing the story, so it was during lockdown. I started writing for Areshkor, like pre-lockdown was when I started writing for Areshkor, and I came up with Elliot and we came up with the first song, End Part One, which we played live back in 2019. And the working title of the song was "The Death of Matt," because it was so fast, it was so aggressive and so intense, and yeah, I love Matt so much. He's such a trooper. He's a very, very talented musician as well.
I think I
And
actually remember
yeah,
the title track for that song. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, Matt's a good guy too. Him and I played together in Weird Stuff whilst he was in the
yeah.
band. I can't remember if there was anything else we ever did, but obviously he's an old friend. Known
Mm.
him and Solly obviously the same length of time since they used to play together before, and yeah, yeah, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're making plans to make a bit of a comeback for the band, man. And yeah, don't take our Sully away too much. Obviously, we need him for our schedules as well,
No,
but
of course, yeah.
it's all good. And
Yeah,
yeah, man, looking forward to seeing what you come up with and what the band's gonna be doing, and yeah, yeah, you guys were very cool. Always enjoyed your export. I remember you showing me demos back in where was it? In their old place,
yeah,
in
ages and
in
ages.
in Lumley Terrace. I remember you showing me some demos back in like 2018, I think.
Yeah, about that time, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
right. And do you
yeah,
remember me recommending you to take some psychedelics for songwriting? Do you remember me telling you that?
no, I don't actually. But that's
Okay.
this is the crazy thing because I have all well the only well on end part one, Elliot and I wrote whilst we were drinking wine or something. I was at my place, and end part two and three, that was all completely sober. That was like calculated calculated chaos in a way,
Uh-huh.
and it was just like yeah, because I I figured out Ereshkigal's sound, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this to use. And then that's why like the way the writing is completely different between N2 and 3 compared to M Part 1, because M Part 1 is a bit more kind of like a fun, thrashy, beat your friends up kind of thing, or
Mm.
beat your enemies up, I don't know, mosh pit music, if you will. And and 2 and 3 are a lot more kind of like introverted. So it's interesting how End has just becomes darker and darker and more kind of like, someone kind of, I guess one way to put it is like someone's having fun, then the next minute they're like slowly beginning to cowering in fear, and then maybe crying alone in the corner trying to fight off their demons or whatever. But that's the kind of thing I wanted because when I listen to music now, I want it to feel like a journey, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted with End One, Two, and Three. It's because it's conceptually as well. It's about like the writing part of it. Well, Matt actually wrote most of the lyrics for End. He had a whole bunch of lyrics lying around, and I used them for End Part 1 and 2. And the story is about someone who, there's a holy war, a war against like, God's army against like the non-believers or whatever. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've thought about it now. It's like, um,
I think that's
God's,
happening right now.
huh?
I think that's happening right now.
Yeah, God's army against the world, and then it's like the first part is like the actual war itself. The second one is like a war cry to fight against God, and then end part three is someone who fought for God, and God did not help them in his hour of need. So he's now trying. Well, his basically it ends. The last line in end part three is God, I promise you death, and it kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger like that. So interesting concept. And that's what it came to be.
Hmm.
So
That's an interesting line. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
To end the release with. Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So
Interesting.
yeah, that was basically like the concept of it. War, a call to war, and effectively the aftermath of it, and that's what it came. And I'm still extremely proud of End because it's still, for me, it's probably the work I'm probably most proud of. I stand by all my albums, well, all my releases and all the music, but that's one thing that I'm really, really proud of is especially the writing part with End because I spent so much time trying to perfect it, and I got this result that was just, for me anyway, it hit all the criteria that I wanted from an intro song, a middle song, and a final song on the um, on the um, on the EP. And one thing that changed with Sojourn to End is that Sojourn was written on six-string guitars, and End was written mostly on seven-string guitars. That's why it's a bit more lower, more moody, and there's a lot more kind of going on musically between the two guitars.
Right.
Writing on a seven-string for Ereskigal has just been really, really good for the kind of direction I've wanted to take it in. So let's see what Areshkigal brings because I want to get us gigging again. I want to play an Areshkigal show again, and I think the world needs to, well, especially the UK scene needs another band that's a proper kick in the teeth. So yeah,
I would agree with that. Absolutely, man. Well, listen, I look forward to what you guys are going to do. I'm actually curious to revisit some of your stuff now because I've heard it all over the years, especially from what Soli has showed me as well. But now that I have a bit more insight to it, I'm curious to go and revisit some of those. But yeah, that's very cool, man. As we wrap this up, is there anything that you want to share with the audience? Are you still got your course going as well? If people can check
yes,
it out?
yes. Black Metal Guitar Mastery is available on Udemy, so it's mainly designed for people who really want to get good at black metal guitar playing because it covers everything. all the techniques that you need to play black metal to a a very very high standard. And it's a yeah, that's out there for everyone. I've also got hang on, I've also got this my tab book, Abyssal Scriptures Unleashed, which is full of all of my own music throughout the years. So if you guys want to dive into the way I write songs and the way I construct riffs and stuff, everything's pretty much in here.
That
And
looks
part
like
one,
you've dedicated some time to that, man. I like seeing that. That's cool. That's cool.
yes, it this was many months of work, and
Mm.
I hate tabbing. So yeah, so there was a bit of a tough love kind of result, but yeah, end Ereskigal End Part 1 is tabbed in its entirety on guitars and bass as well, so there are bass tabs in there as well. And the final thoughts, I guess, that I have for everyone listening is make your own mind up, decide what music you really want to make, try and make something unique, try and be as authentic to be as authentic to yourself as possible, and always find new things to inspire you, and always continue learning, and always try and push yourself musically. Listen to as much music as you can so you can figure out what you like and what you don't like. And I don't know, stay healthy. Don't eat McDonald's.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I can back that up. Sure.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess if people listening are more interested in learning more about like black metal guitar and listening to interviews of other famous black metal musicians in the scene, my channel's always there. It's hopefully some source of entertainment and education for people listening and watching. And yeah, always try new things. Don't try and copy someone just because you like it. Always try to be inspired by something, but always find something that's more yourself than anything. And I think that's more important. Authenticity in the art as opposed to imitation and pastiche. So yeah.
I like it. I like it. Good, man. Good. And you, since you said that in the book you've got the highest standard of black metal playing, I'm expecting to see some Deathspell Omega in there at least, right?
See, all of this is my own work.
All
So
right. Cool.
there's
Cool.
nothing, yeah, all of this is completely original. Purely because, there'll be big licensing issues if I tab someone else's music without their permission and stuff. So, um, yeah, so it's all my own music. There's, some of my own solo songs, some riffs from bands throughout the years. There's stuff from Premature Birth there. There's Ereskigal riffs, stuff from Sojourn, End of Part One's in there. There's like a rhythm exercise, and there's like some tablatures of some of the most popular videos on the channel. Five more types of black metal riff, five types of black metal riff, 10 levels of black metal guitar playing. All the cool original stuff is tabbed out there. Yeah, so like I said, it's all about the next generation of musicians to learn and giving them all the best tools possible that I can provide them. So yeah, and of course, I have to thank all my subscribers and supporters over the years because I am, we nothing without them. So
I like it, man. Very good. Very good. And I'm glad that someone's out there doing that kind of work because honestly, like nothing fucking like. All right, this is the first time I'm expressing this on here, but dissection, every fucking tab online, every display video, everything that's got to do with that band is fucking wrong, and it pisses me off, man. So it's good to get these things done the correct way, right? Like not a single channel on YouTube. I don't know if you've ever touched on dissection, but not a single channel on YouTube that I know has done the intro of Where Did Angels Lie correctly. And it fucking grinds my gears, and I might actually fix that myself someday. But the reason why I mentioned dissection is because you mentioned about the tab book and the licensing. Well, the dissection tablature book, which you always would see someone promoting on Facebook saying it's been approved by Jan's father, that tablature book is fucking bullshit. Like, there's so many like inconsistencies and inaccuracies in that book. It's fucking wank. So yeah, it's good to do the research. It's good to put in the work, and it's good to pay attention. I don't know what that rant had anything to do with what you were just saying, but I feel
Well,
like it's the closest subject to it, and I needed to
and
say that.
and that's a very, very important point, is because before I release a video, I need to make sure that, for at least for myself, it's, in my power that I can do it exactly the way the artist does as well. So I have done dissection. I did the intro to the Somber Lane, I think the Wacken version where they're playing in D standard.
Uh huh.
I got that one down. So
Good
that's
man.
okay. And that's the thing as well. It's so sometimes it's hard if there's, some little, odd harmony there, or if there's it's always horrible when there's like three guitars, and it's even harder if people want to learn like some of the early Burzum stuff as well, because sometimes you can't even tell what notes are being played sometimes. And
Mm.
yeah, bad production does not equal black metal. That's, and good production doesn't equal black metal either. But at the same time, it's like, if people want me to learn like Zasthur and Leviathan and all these like super kind of mysterious, like the riffs sound mysterious, then it's really, really difficult to work out. And that's probably one of the reasons why it hasn't been out yet, is because I can't hear what the fuck is going on.
Hmm.
So, making something accurate is very, very difficult. And if you are going to make a tab book for a band or whatever, at least be in direct talk with the person who actually wrote the material, who can tell you that's right and that's not right. Because going back to one of the videos I did with Shalva, we spent at least, a good 2 or 3 months in total refining and going over every single note in 1349's Liberation album. And the guitar tone on that album is so scratchy, and
Is, yeah.
it's so violent and aggressive. Like, trying to figure out all the notes and stuff was a nightmare, all these years. And then it's been such a great blessing to have Shalva there being like, this is how it's done.
Right.
And
Right.
that's one of the most recent, well, of this date. The most recent video I put out was I Breathe Spears by 1349. And you know Archeon wrote that riff, but Shalva was the dude who remembered it and taught it to me. And not only we did that in the full album playthrough, but I was able to teach it to the world, because people were like, I've been wanting to learn this for years. And I'm like,
Mm.
I got you, G.
That's
So
yeah, that's a very rewarding thing, man. And what an awesome thing to be a mediator in that kind of place. I kind of felt that way because I did the cover for Dissection's Rebirth of Dissection Live, all of Jon's parts with all the solos, note by note. Like that may or may not have taken me 9 months to learn that. But yeah, it's a valuable thing, and you always get the thing of people wanting to know exactly how to play it and how to do certain things, and it's a rewarding thing to be a part of, and it gives us a new edge to the art that we very much care about and dedicate our times of our lives to. So yeah, man, it's been a fucking pleasure to have you on the podcast, and it's most importantly, it's great to have you back in the UK.
yeah, thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure catching up and talking music, and yeah, in some ways reminiscing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's always, yeah, it's always great to catch up with you, and it's always a very, very pleasant and always insightful conversation that we have. So yeah, well, big love, man.
Likewise, likewise. Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for jumping on. I really appreciate your time. And to everyone else listening, thank you guys for joining us. And go and support Dev's work. And we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations. Cheers. There we go.